is if you're rebuilding a roster, you kind of got the ultimate cheat code. You don't leave the state until mid-October. Like, you're literally home in front of your crowd to build that chemistry, that continuity, and that relationship for 7 straight weeks, including 6 games. If you win one of the 2 games against South Carolina or against Alabama, and you're sitting at 5-1, I mean, there's very few reasons not to believe that this team can't go on a run and at least go 9-3 this year.
It's Mizzou That's Who here on KC Sports Number. Tucker Frank on hanging out with Maggie Johnson back for your season 4, right? Season 4? Oh my goodness. Season 4, season opening episode of Mizzou That's Who. We're back for another season. Maggie and I are very excited for the conversation that we have loaded up for you guys today as well, talking Mizzou roster, everything like that, with Cole Thompson of SEC Unfiltered. But Maggie, how have things been going in your neck of the woods in St. Louis?
Oh, they've been pretty good over here. You know, I'm ready for talking season to be over. I think I mentioned that to you a little bit ago, but you know, it's just, I put out a tweet the other day that was like, this time of the year, it's just like scroll, bookmark, scroll, bookmark, scroll, bookmark. So that's kind of what we're going through right now. And I'm ready for, you know, football to be on TV, whether that be the FBS, NFL, FCS. Like, I don't really care. Just, you know, give me the gridiron right now.
Got the start of the preseason on Thursday, where you got to see some of those preseason games happen, and got a little bit of the taste of a little bit of real football. I mean, you're not going to see any of those starters playing until probably the first week of the season in September. But look, we are in a month where the Missouri Tigers will play a football game. I mean, that's crazy to think about, that it is already coming up on
Thursday the 29th? Is it the
28th? Because they've started that tradition of where they always will play on the Thursday of Labor Day week, going into Labor Day week. Yeah,
it makes sense. People are going to the Lake of the Ozarks and they're doing their thing. They don't have to, you know, leave. And also, there's a lot of good games on that Saturday, so I'm fine with getting Central Arkansas out of the way for Missouri and just getting to watch those good games on Saturday, because I'm gonna be like, just don't bother me, actually.
That's the perfect way to look at it with week 1 as well. I mean, there's actually like a decent amount of week 0 games this year that are like kind of intriguing as well.
Armageddon?
Yeah, like having that in Ireland
is to Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of, you know, the United States of America probably had to make some amends to Ireland for sending Nebraska and Northwestern over there a couple years ago. So like, all right, we'll give you what should be an actual real good football game, because we gave you Nebraska and Northwestern first. So we'll follow up with a real one.
Because that could be a big time Big 12 matchup in terms of, you know, winning the Big 12, and it's so early on, which is also kind of scary because you're playing with new guys, like it's new teams and things like that. So that's always scary. But I feel like it is pretty on brand. Like, I feel like Ireland's very like farmy. Lots of farmland, and you know, and you got Iowa State. Like, what more could you ask for?
I think, yeah, it is the perfect matchup to send over there. That's what they need. But no, all exciting stuff happening is, I mean, it's August. There's going to be football games played in August, real football games that do count for the Missouri Tigers in August. And also, if you're in the Kansas City area, we're hosting a watch party at Holiday Distillery. Should throw this out there for week 2 of college football action. If you're obviously a Missouri fan, you know that that's for Missouri, Kansas. I mean, not everybody can go to the game, obviously. They don't have a stadium big enough for everyone to go to the game. And I know the tickets are kind of pricey for that. So
like $300.
Yeah. So if you're not really wanting to make the trip to Columbia and spend that much money, we got a spot for you at Holiday Distillery. You can come hang out with myself. ESPN's Matt Miller will be there, as well as we're watching college football that whole day, not just for Missouri, Kansas. Like, obviously, we'll be watching that game. We'll be locked into it there. I'm hoping that we have a lot of Missouri fans out there. I want Missouri fans to outweigh Kansas fans. If you're in the Kansas City area, keep that in mind. But we'll put the link in the description. You can go sign up for that there. I believe it's free. So like, all you got to do is show up and you free to enter. And we'll have food, we'll have drinks, we'll got everything you need from our friends at Holiday Distillery. We'll be hanging out watching the game if you're not making your way to Columbia for the border war. And if you just want to hang out and watch other games with us too, I think that week 2 slate actually is pretty decent as well. Yeah, it looks like that game's going to kick off at 2:30 for the Missouri-Kansas game. So we'll be out there.
Michigan, Oklahoma is for sure that weekend. I do know.
Yes. That. So I mean, they've got. It's a pretty decent slate at week 2 that we'll be out there hanging out and watching some college ball. So, if you are in the Kansas City area, please come up to Weston Missouri Holiday Distillery. We did tweet it out on KC Sports Network. I'll make sure to retweet it again from the Mizzou That's Who account as well. I think I retweeted it one time, but I might actually just tweet it out from Mizzou That's Who so people know where they can go hang out with us and watch. I assume you'll be in Columbia for the first 6 weeks of the year, Maggie.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of I-70 driving, and there's a lot of construction, so I'm not super looking forward to that. But yeah, I will be there every game, God willing. So I'm excited. I'm nervous. It's that feeling of the preseason a little bit where you don't exactly know what to expect, because you remember 2023 when we had that game against Middle Tennessee State and you're like, oh no, we play K-State next week. That's kind of like that feeling that there's so much uncertainty, but yeah, I'm just ready to get going and at least see what we have.
Absolutely. And this is one of those years too where, last year it felt like we came into the season with, some pretty high expectations. This year, for me personally, I don't know if my expectations are as high as they were a year ago or really even they should be for this team. I know Eli Drinkwitz is setting that bar pretty high for the expectations, but I don't know if my expectations are as high as Eli Drinkwitz is setting them. I kind of think that's a good spot to be in, right? Heading into a season where there's been a lot of roster turnover. Obviously, we'll get into a lot of this with Cole coming up here, but I think that's a good spot to be expectations-wise.
Yeah, no, I agree. I remember last year you asked me early on in the season if it was a playoff team, and, I did say that it could be a playoff team. Right now we're sitting, I think you can always be a playoff team. You look at the transition from 2022 to 2023, and we knew that we had a lot of talent returning, but we weren't entirely sure that it was going to be what it was. I think I picked Mizzou at 9-3. I think maybe you and Gabe back then picked them at 8-4, just somewhere right in that. And I feel like we could be looking at a similar situation where we're going to expect and hopefully they over deliver, and I think that's kind of the way as Mizzou fans we should go into it, because I think having those overly high expectations probably weren't healthy for any of us.
No, I don't think so. But look, as we mentioned, this podcast coming out 3 weeks before Missouri's first game, so we'll have some other shows before we fully dive into it. But let's get into our conversation with Cole, Maggie. It was really good to sit down with him, talk to Cole Thompson. He's a college football host over there at SEC Unfiltered. He also producer at Sports Talk 790 in Houston and is the managing editor for the Texans Wire. But we want him for his SEC Unfiltered takes is what we have him here for, and to talk about the Missouri Tigers, the roster, and really anything in between. Because look, I'm expert because he's featured in Netflix. So we called in the hate list is what we did for the season opening episode.
Yeah, lots of Netflix coverage for SEC Unfiltered. His boss, I'm pretty sure boss because he's the one that started it. Chris Phillips is also filtered a lot. It's just very cool to get to watch people that and who work really hard. They were all at SEC Media Days covering the Tigers and all this other team. So really cool for them to get that spotlight on Netflix.
It is cool, and he now gets a spotlight on a probably cooler platform, KC Sports Network and the Mizzou That's Who podcast. Here's our conversation with Cole Thompson.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
I'm BJ Kissel, founder and CEO of KC Sports Network. Emprise Bank has been with us from the beginning. They were our first network partner, and they believed in the vision of what we were building from the start. I can't speak to any other banks or companies and how they operate, but I can tell you from personal experience and based on the growth of the network you're listening to right now, that if you have banking needs, call our friends at Emprise Bank. We've worked with so many great people there over the years, from Vicky and Aggie to Andrea, Lori, Jackie, Deb, and Aaron, and not to mention so many others that not just supported KC Sports Network, but supported our KCSN Foundation as well. But the best thing that I know is that if I have a question or a problem, no matter how dumb the question is, I know who I'm going to call and who I'm going to talk to. And I know that I'm getting an answer from someone that I can trust. And I know that person is there to help us. That's why Emprise Bank has always been and continues to be our partner in Possible, and they can be yours too. You just have to reach out. If you have a banking need, whether it's business or personal, hit me up. I will connect you directly with the same people that have helped us build KCSN, and that's our friends at Emprise Bank.
Folks, nothing beats hanging out with the boys on a hot summer day and watching some baseball. And the simplest way that you all can get in on the action is to download the Pick 6 app from DraftKings. It is crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats for 2 or more of your favorite players, and boom, you're in the mix for big cash prizes. And the best part is, Pick 6 is available right here in Missouri. Don't miss out on the fun. Don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick 6, and right now, new customers can get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Here's what you got to do. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and then use code KCSN. That's code KCSN for new customers to get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Bonus picks expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see pick6.draftkings.com/promos. Okay, there we go. All right, we'll introduce you beforehand. So, all right, here, coming down in 3, 2, and 1. Cool, appreciate you hopping on and joining us on the season opening edition of Mizzou. That's Who. How you doing? How are things down where you are?
Season opening edition. I gotta come and I gotta bring the fire today. Like, this is exciting. I'm glad I get to be on. I'm glad we could talk about the Tigers. We can address the elephant in the room real fast. No, you're not in the top 25, but you know what? That doesn't mean that I don't believe in you. Okay, I still believe that the Tigers are rolling this year. Because if you want to doubt Eli Drinkwitz after that press conference in Atlanta, you're doing yourself an ill-advised service. I'm telling you that right now.
Well, and here's the thing. I wanted to get this off the table too, because Drink obviously opened up really early in the morning. I think an 8 a.m. And I know SEC Media Days, y'all are going out, you're having a good time, you're hanging out with other, you guys cover everybody, but there's people covering teams everywhere. So we appreciate SEC Unfiltered being at that morning interview, because Drink even said immediately, he was like, oh, I appreciate all 10 or whatever of you that showed up.
14 of you. We're not going to talk about the Epstein files. We're not going to talk about Area 51, where JFK was shot. But any football questions, fire my way. I love Drink. I really do. The way I describe Drink to people is, imagine if you had Ted Lasso, but he knew that he was actually good at football, coaching football. Because Ted comes off as this guy is always Mr. Positivity, always glass half full. Drink is this guy. It's no, I know I'm really good. What do you got? Let's fire away, dude. With that confidence. And the way that he talks about his team is so infectious that it's very easy to find yourself, even if you hate him, kind of rooting for him, because of just, he doesn't care what the outside noise is. He's not afraid to be the most unapologetic version of himself. And honestly, at a place like Missouri, you need that. You genuinely need, there are certain places throughout just the world of sports, I think there's a certain identity you got to have. For me, when it comes to the quarterback at Oklahoma, you want to be successful. You got to act like that you are the best person in that room at all times. Doesn't matter what your star rating was. Doesn't matter what your personnel is around you. You got to be the most authentic version of yourself. Because if you're not selling Mizzou as a place that you can win, what's the point of even being there?
I think that's a great kind of place to start, because this is a roster that has seen a lot of turnover. They had a lot of guys go to the NFL, and they're kind of not necessarily an identity crisis, but they're looking for those guys to step up and kind of replace an identity that they already had. And Eli Drinkwitz at that press conference at SEC Media Days, and really ever since that press conference, has been nothing but overwhelmingly excited about the roster that he has and the talent that he's had on this team. I think that's an interesting strategy to take when you lose a couple guys in the first round of the NFL or early second round, some guys too, and you're like, yeah, no, I think this team's better. Like, that's certainly a strategy to take. He's very confident in what he's built so far this year. And, you know, a lot of people thought that this might be somewhat of a rebuilding year because of that, because of all those pieces that they lost. But Eli seems wildly confident in the expectations for this team.
Well, it still could be a little bit of a rebuilding year in terms of what you expected going into the season, which is why, again, last season they were ranked preseason top 10. They close out the year with a win against Ohio State. They end up going 9-3, and they do lose 3 games, that one of which they probably should have won, but the other 2, you know, it was definitely, you saw the competition just didn't come off the wagon really early on, but you get those games in your backyard. Still, this roster is a very big unknown. Like, I think that that's kind of the blessing and the beauty of what is Mizzou going into 2025 is you believe that their coach, who has back-to-back double-digit win seasons, can do it one more time. But also, even if he doesn't, there's not really a lot of people who are jumping out of the wagon and saying, guy doesn't know what he's doing. But let's say he does, and he hits on all these transfers. Like, 21 new players came in via the portal. And it's not just Perbula. It's like Kevin Coleman, who was probably the most slept on wide receiver in college football last year because he played for a 2-10 Mississippi State team. But he was like number 2 in the SEC in receiving yards and yards per play. So now he gets to come on in and be that Luther Burden replacement. You brought in Josiah Trotter from West Virginia. Honestly, one of my favorite signings of the entire offseason. Had great reps last season in Morgantown. Going to come on in and working with Corey Batoon. You land, what's his name? Damon Wilson, who was a former 5-star at Georgia. Like he gets what the pedigree is. Like, he's been at practice underneath Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann. This is somebody who is now going to be that alpha in the way that he never could at Georgia, but it was just because of he fell down the pecking order. And now he gets to be the big hammerhead shark in a very small pond where there's other people around him and he's going to feast. Like, that's what you like about this roster. He went after proven guys. He went after guys that have a ton of upside. He went after guys that maybe are just trying to live up to their 5-star ratings. And so if you combine all that together, as long as you're able to build a continuity before that first road game on the Plains in Jordan-Hare, there's a lot to like about what direction this team is going in when they face off against Oklahoma, when they travel to Fayetteville, when they go to Vanderbilt to take on Diego Pavia, which, by the way, it says a lot about Eli Drinkwitz when he's like, hey, by the way, don't forget about Diego Pavia because Alabama did, and look at what happened. Like, so he's not sleeping on those type of games. The cool thing about this team right now, in my opinion, is if you're rebuilding a roster, you kind of got the ultimate cheat code. You don't leave the state until mid-October. Like, you're literally home in front of your crowd to build that chemistry, that continuity, and that relationship for 7 straight weeks, including 6 games. If you win one of the 2 games against South Carolina or against Alabama, and you're sitting at 5-1, I mean, there's very few reasons not to believe that this team can't go on a run and at least go 9-3 this year.
I think there's a little bit, like, we're talking about schedules and leaving the state and all of that. I feel like maybe because Mizzou plays in the SEC that they get a little bit more crap for that. Also, Mizzou doesn't pick their schedule. We obviously, as a fan that has season tickets, I don't want to go to Columbia 6 weeks in a row. Like, it's it's a lot, but it also puts a lot on the back end, right? But look at schools, like, nobody's talking about the University of Miami. Miami leaves Florida 3 times.
Yep.
University of North Carolina, UNC, they leave North Carolina like 3 times as well.
2 or 3? Yeah, it's something crazy like that.
So, I mean, because they play, I think they have like Wake Forest and they play at Charlotte, which is very weird. I shouldn't say anything because we played at UMass last year.
Let's say you played at UMass last year, which, by the way, essentially in this thing. That is Oklahoma. Oklahoma's going to the link to play Temple. Like, who does that? Who comes up with these schedules where they're like, oh, by the way, you're going to this place? There's an NFL stadium, by the way, that we can't fill the bottom brim with Temple.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of those this year. Some weird road games that if you just Google it, there's a whole Reddit thread about that. But I feel like Mizzou kind of gets like the unfair end of a lot of these things because obviously we lost Luther Burden, lost Theo Weiss, lost Brady Cook. Okay. It wasn't Brady Cook's best year, but he was still one of the winningest quarterbacks at Mizzou. So you have to throw him in there. But you see schools like Ole Miss, like they lost Jackson Dart. You have so much quarterback controversy, like all over. Teams like Notre Dame, like they obviously lost Riley Leonard. So you have this, but I feel like Mizzou, I don't know if it's decal bias or what it is, but Mizzou kind of doesn't get that benefit of the doubt the same way everybody's like, Oh yeah, they replaced them at Ole Miss. They replaced them at Notre Dame. Well, we have a top 7 transfer portal class. Why are people not saying that we replaced them as well? And I think a lot of it does just have to do with the fact that it's University of Missouri, the fact that it's Lane Kiffin versus Drink. What are your thoughts on that?
Maggie, I'm just gonna hold your hand politely and say it's because you're Mizzou. Like that's it. Like I hate to be that guy.
Tell the listeners.
It's because you're Mizzou. Listen. I grew up in the southeastern region. I grew up where Big 12 country was, and Mizzou was like really poignant at the time. And we had that rivalry before they left in 2012. Like I love Chase Daniel. I love Gary Pinkel. Sean Weatherspoon was one of my favorite players just to ever watch play the game. Like, and still, it was because it was Missouri. Like nobody thinks about Missouri. People forget it's a state sometimes. People don't realize that St. Louis is in Missouri. Kansas City is in both sides of the spectrum. Like they forget about that all the time. And so I think that when it comes to the Southeastern Conference, Texas A&M, whether or not you agree that Texas is Southeastern region, it's Southern. Missouri is like just the redheaded stepchild that said, and we're going to come along for the ride. And here we are. And they forget about it. But like, it's funny because I had this conversation not too long ago. Texas A&M has the 6th most wins in the SEC since 2012 when they joined the conference with Missouri. Missouri has more 10-win seasons than 8 programs combined since 2012. But you don't think about that because if you have to remember that there's also been the dark times of Missouri where it was 4-8 and it was 5-7 and it was 6-6, where the Texas 8-4 joke sticks around because of you expect that to be the norm out in College Station. So when you see good things happen for a program like Mizzou in the last 2 years by hitting on a player like Cody Schrader, that was a D2 talent that ended up leading the SEC in rushing, it's unexpected. It's unheralded. And you think of it more so like you do an ACC school or a Big Ten school that has that one season of incredible success and it's not sustainable. Then they go right back to going 3-9 the next year or 4-8. And it's unjust, but it's because of where the vicinity of Mizzou is in the pecking order of the SEC and how you watch everyone make the joke. You're not really Southern. We just kind of threw you in because we needed a 12 team or a 14 team. Like that's it. Like I love the dude that does the SEC short videos, Matt, and he it did Dark Mizzou and he finally embraced the dark side. Because it's truly real. It's like the emo kid that's like, I finally have had it with everyone picking on me. That is Missouri. And that's the bread and butter that you have to live with and the identity that you have to embrace. But that's largely why nobody takes Missouri seriously, is because of it's Mizzou. It's not Notre Dame. It's not Miami. It's not North Carolina. You don't have a former 6-time Super Bowl winning coach leading the charge. You don't have a foul mouth like Lane Kiffin that was fired on a tarmac and then became a Nick Saban disciple and picking fights with Paul Feinbaum. You have a coach that beats to his own drum and is kind of out of left field, and he embraces who he is. And it's not right, but it is the reality.
Yeah, I do think Eli Drinkwitz just kind of embodies true, the underdog. Obviously something to prove has been their motto for years. And I think that is perfectly embodied in what Eli Drinkwitz is and what the program is. I want to get back to kind of this roster too, because I'm looking at their our lads depth chart. They do a really good job of color coding things for my simple brain, right? When I look at it, I can just look and be like, oh yeah, look, those guys are new. You're looking at a lot of guys on the one line. You're looking at 2, 4, 6 guys on the one line projected out of the 11 starters being transfers in there. We talked about how Eli Drinkwitz really honed in on the transfer portal this upcoming season. I don't really even know if the high school recruiting was as big of a buzz around here locally as it was, maybe the year prior when they're in the recruitment for the number 1 player in the country a couple years in a row. But that was obviously the transfer portal was more of a focus. I want to know, you brought up a couple guys, but who's the one newcomer on this offense that you can see having a huge impact this season?
Can I say Ahmad Hardy and then go with an actual answer? Because that's the right answer.
Yes.
Ahmad Hardy last season rushed for, 1,300 yards, averaged 6.5 yards a play, literally was the Warhawks offense in the Sun Belt, won Sun Belt Player of the Year, and still didn't get as many offers or NIL packages from the major SEC teams. How do you not see that and go, yeah, I can figure it out? If I'm Alabama, if I'm Georgia, if I'm Auburn, like Auburn this year, Auburn is so intriguing to me because of it's last season they needed a quarterback. They said, no, Diego Pavia can't do it. And then guess what? He ends up beating them in their backyard. I think that they needed a running back this year after losing Jarquez Hunter. Here's Ahmad Hardy. Now we're good. Okay, well, Ahmad Hardy, do what you got to do to go ahead and shut up Hugh Freeze. Like, they make this mistake all the time, but it's something about the way that you look at the play calling by Kirby Moore. There is a run emphasis. There is a value of having not just a lead running back, but also a really good secondary running back. And that's where I think Jamal Roberts is going to step on up. But this is a dude that was undervalued coming out of high school, really kind of knitted his teeth and kind of chipped his tooth, kind of working his way through the Sun Belt, which is a really fun conference just to watch randomly. And there was always consistency regardless of which defense he went up against. I think that he is probably going to be a player that we got to talk about a lot more. And I think he's going to be one of the best names when it comes to running backs in the SEC. But the name that I'm looking at is Johnny Walker from Virginia. I think that that's going to be the dude that you really need to see take that step forward, because in my opinion, and what's really interesting, if you watch the Eddie Given Saturday documentary on Netflix right now, the Arkansas episode really stands out what I have tried to tell people for years. If you don't have an offensive line, you don't have a shot. Like, genuinely, I love the wide receiver additions. I love the running back room. I think that if you have a quality quarterback, you can be successful. But in those games against teams like Alabama and South Carolina, and I'll throw in, if you were to make it to the SEC championship, Georgia, what you got with Texas, those defensive lines will feast upon BS line, and they will absolutely make your quarterback be a one-dimensional dude, and you're basically waving the white flag by the third quarter. So you lose Armand Membu, you lose Marcus Bryant. I do think that you are going to have a little bit of trouble replacing Armand Membu, but Keegan Tross maybe comes on in and does a good job. But now having Bo Perbula, a mobile quarterback, however you can create running lanes, however you can find an opportunity to allow your one-on-one battles to kind of be taken away and give more time for your quarterback to find success, that's where I think you need a guy like Johnny Walker to step on up. So I think that he's going to have to be the big-time player. Johnny Williams, my apologies, my bad. Johnny Williams. He's going to have to be the really big-time guy on the outside of the offensive line. I think if he does a good job of keeping Bo Perbula upright and really just kind of making sure that every defensive lineman he goes up against is slowed down, maybe not stopped, but slowed down, it gives your offense that second chance opportunity.
We'll get to talking about QBs a little bit, because you've been talking about Bo Perbula and only saying Bo Perbula, but
I know I haven't said Sanders bowlers. I got to bring them up.
Well, we'll talk about that. But no, I agree, because I was thinking about this too. You look at teams like South Carolina from a couple of years ago that had Spencer Rattler. You look at even Jalen Milroe's offensive line that I think led the SEC in sacks that year. You look at Oklahoma last year. They're all more talented than Mizzou on paper, but because they couldn't have that offensive line, just nothing could really come together for them. Right. So no, I totally agree. I think left tackle is going to be our biggest position that we need to figure out, because I think at this point with the quarterback battle, I think Drink, it feels this way anyways, feels pretty comfortable with both quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. And it's really just that left tackle position that they might be questioning. But I really think that if we can find somebody to step in there, that our offense is going to be pretty good. And we were talking a little bit about Ahmad Hardy, so I want to jump to that really quick too. We've had success getting Sunbelt players. Obviously, Drink came over from the Sunbelt. Last year, we had 2 Sunbelt running backs that did a pretty good job. But I really think the winner on this team and why Ahmad Hardy can be successful is Coach Looper, the running backs coach, and the success that he's had, because he's had 2 Doak Walker finalists. I think 2 out of the 4 years had Doak Walker finalists with Tyler Beatty and with Cody Schrader, like you said. So I think Missouri is an attractive place for those types of running backs that come in, obviously, with something to prove.
No, that's what it really is that it's the running back room of like East Dillon in Friday Night Lights. Like, literally, people don't consider it to be this big time place. They don't consider it to be like an actual threat. And then lo and behold, here we go. You get the right coach in the building. You get the right tailback. It changes the entire identity about what this organization is and what they're about. And that was a big reason why I like the Ahmad Hardy signing, is that instead of going to a program where you were maybe going to split reps with somebody that was a former 4-star and like waiting in the wings, you get to be the guy. You get to come on in and automatically kind of set the tone, and people realize, hey, as long as he is healthy in practice, he is our dude. And there were games last year, remember, like in the Sun Belt, I think he averaged like 117 or 119 yards per game in every Sun Belt competition. I think there was 1 or 2 games he didn't rush for 100 yards against a Sun Belt team. And then like against Auburn, he still averaged 5.2 yards a play. Against Texas, he averaged only 3 yards a play, but he also only carried the ball I think it was like 7 or 8 times. So, the question that I have for him is, what did he have to do this offseason to gain a little bit more muscle, put a little bit more weight on his body to where he could able to handle the hits of playing in the SEC? But overall, like, the style of player that he is fits the Mizzou mold on what you want in that backfield. And that's why I think I'm really high on it. Also, like, Kirby Moore's offense has always like predicated to having a good running back room.
Yeah.
Now, the question that I think that a lot of people are going to have is, can he have the same success at UL they had at ULM, Missouri? Potentially. I think that's fine if he doesn't. Like, if he ends up finishing 3rd in rushing, I don't think anybody's going to be that upset. Like, okay,
No.
995 yards or 1,006 yards. Like, okay, it's not ULM, but we'll take it. But this is why I really like that you have Jamal Roberts as a secondary option, because last season you had the Marcus Carroll and the Nate Noel version together. And that was a really good blend on, we have certain design plays that we know we got to turn to 9, we got to turn to 6. So, like, can you do the same thing this year where maybe it is Hardy running the ball and he's setting up a lot of drives, but you need that extra jolt to the outside and you're running an 18 option. So you bring in Roberts and he's the one that goes and he scores the touchdown on a 60-yard scamper. Like, that's where you're at with Mizzou that I think is really positive right now, especially in the ground game.
Let's talk about the quarterbacks. I think that's also the big topic to talk about as well, because they do bring in Bo Perbula from Penn State. His transfer was a little, maybe somewhat controversial, you could say, in terms of the timing of when he decided to transfer. But I think it really brought to light the college football schedule and everything that these players have to think of and what they have to do. He lands at Missouri, a guy who, Penn State had packages for him in their offense. Like, he was actively used in their offense, but wanted to go to a new spot, and he lands at Missouri. Sam Horn, the quarterback that has been at Missouri, was Travis Hunter's high school quarterback too. He's been at Missouri this whole time. He's been playing baseball, was just drafted by the Dodgers, actually signed with the Dodgers as well. Yeah. But it's not going to impact his eligibility with football at all with how that works. He is back from his Tommy John surgery that he had last season. And after a year off of not having to worry about a quarterback competition, Missouri is back in the position where they are trying to find their next quarterback. Eli Drinkwitz seems to be keeping it pretty close to the vest. What do you think? Who are you thinking, Cole, for the quarterbacks of the Missouri Tigers?
Well, you got to feel really good about the quarterback battle. Just like the fact that there actually is something going on. Because I remember when Bo Perbula signed, it's like, okay, he's the quarterback. Like, Zolar's cool. I'm glad that you're here, but we got you for 2 more years before we have to throw you to the fire. But then Sam Horn is like, he's impressing. And Horn was a guy that I remember so many people wanted to see him practice, and he was just so fixated on baseball. And now we're going down the Kyler Murray pathway of, hey, he gets drafted by an MLB team, he signs the MLB team, but they give him that 1 year to go ahead and figure things out before you report to camp. Now we're going to hear that Sam Horn wins the starting job. He leads Missouri to an undefeated season. He wins the Heisman Trophy, becomes the number 1 overall pick to the Cleveland Browns next year. And who cares about the Dodgers? Like, I want to go play at Cleveland because that's what Kyler did. So we got to do the same thing, don't we? I think
Does Cleveland not have enough quarterbacks already?
No, they don't. They're self-sabotaging, Maggie. You know this as well as I do. They want Nick. They want Arch. They're going to do this for 2 years to get both, even though Miss Terry's never leaving Lake Ahava. I think it's Bo. I do. And largely it's because of what the NIL package was to get him over there, because there were other schools that wanted him. He had to do what was best for him. And if you've watched any of the interviews, he mentioned leaving that team in route to a college football playoff appearance, eventual semifinal, and a potential national championship is hard, because he was called upon multiple times throughout last season and really was influential in that Wisconsin game in the second half to guarantee that Penn State got a win. So he was a player or two away from maybe being the reason why Penn State wins its first national title since the Joe Pyre. That's how close he was. And he decided that Mizzou is the place for me. So there had to be an NIL package that was probably really thrown together that was too enticing for him to pass on up. There's the mobility factor as well that I think is really intriguing, that adds a second element to this offense that maybe has been missing with Brady Cook. Like, Brady Cook, you got to give him a little bit of credit. He was athletic at times. He was a statue at times, and he was very dorky white dude at times. But still, like, he had those moments. He had his chops. Bo Perbula is an athlete. Like, the guy is averaged, I think, like 6.2 yards a play, and he has 10 rushing touchdowns in the last 2 years. He has 9 passing touchdowns and 1 interception, a completion percentage around 71%. The thing that we're wondering about him is, can he do this on a 4-quarter basis for 6 straight weeks?
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing to have, and I think that, the Central Arkansas game early on in the year is probably really beneficial for both of them to get the quality reps. But I'm looking at you going up against Kansas in week 2, what that war battle, what that rivalry stands for, what the battle line is. You got to have, I think, a quarterback that gives you a slight edge. I think Horn, coming off of Tommy John surgery, knowing that his future could be in baseball more so than in football, it could limit some of the plays. I think you want Bo Perbula to kind of set the tone for the rest of the season in the SEC. So I lean Perbula. I think it's a good battle. I think it's a good problem to have, because so many times you lose your starting quarterback, your season's over, and you change the identity. So maybe Horn being there and still wanting to be a part of the organization, anything happens to Bo Perbula to where he can't practice, he can't get on the field, and it's a game against, maybe it's like the, what was it? The Oklahoma game last year where Drew Pine stepped on up. Like, it's that game.
We were all really scared.
Yeah. I mean, it's that game where literally you're shitting bricks and you're praying to God that somehow you get that Zion Young scoop and score to save you. But again, if you have a quarterback that is at least stable, it keeps the 9-3, 10-2 hopes alive. And so that's where you're at, I think, with a guy in Sam Horn. But Perbula just has the athletic traits, the skills, and kind of the intangibles that you want as a starting quarterback.
Yeah, that Oklahoma game, we're lucky that Auburn great Jackson Arnold was not so Oklahoma.
You get to face him again this year, so there you go. That's problem solved. Well,
yeah, I assume he's gonna try to come back with a little bit of redemption in that game, because Oklahoma probably beats Missouri in that game. Obviously, he was shorthanded with Drew Pine. He made some great throws. He did save that game for us, but I think that Jackson Arnold will come in with a little bit of
that nagging to me, that was the ultimate game of, I don't want to win here, you win this one. No, I rather you win this one. We're trying to get our coach fired. Well, we want to prove that we actually need Brady Cook more than Drew Pine. So you win this one, and we can use that as motivation fuel. Like, it just was the back and forth of who wants it less.
I don't know. I would say that's almost the 2022 Auburn game, and this might be Mizzou's redemption a little bit, because in that game, I just remember I was sitting somewhere and I threw my shaker that I had because I was so frustrated when Nate Pete dropped that ball on the 1 yard line.
Oh God.
Yeah. So I really think that maybe that was the game. But no, I like what you said about Bo Perbula being an athlete, because last year you would watch Brady Cook play, and I'm not saying he didn't have some great scrambling yards, but that's what they were. They were scrambling yards.
Yeah.
They weren't as much drawn up QB keeper type plays. When there were those type plays, they didn't really go so well. He maybe got a yard or except a goal line, which he was pretty good at that. I don't know how people didn't.
The Luther Burden fake pitch was undefeated.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
they never pitched it one time, but they faked it every single time.
It, what was it, a dozen? You think at some point the defense is going to catch on? He's not getting the ball. He's keeping it.
Right.
Every time I was watching every time I'd be at Burrow Field watching that, I'm like, oh, Brady Cook's keeping the ball. And I don't know why they fell for the pitch every time. But no, I do appreciate now having that type of quarterback, because that type of quarterback's the quarterback that has killed Missouri defensively, the past couple of years. Whenever we played a Jaden Daniels and things like that, we really struggle with the mobile quarterback. So I'm kind of excited to have that a little bit more on our side, which we haven't had in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to go up against Diego Pavia and not have a counter option for you. Because that was the thing last year with him, is how many times did he take off to go ahead and win that game for you? I mean, what was it? 5.2 yards of play and 4 runs of 15 yards downfield. You got to have that mobility. And the quarterback, whether or not you want to admit is a true on passer, and he is supposed to be the point guard facilitator of the football and get it to the right hands, he also has to be an athlete. He has to be a part of the game plan. And you look back at the offense with Andy Kotelnicki last year, there were design plays for Perbula to come on in, and it was only 2 or 3 rushes, but you knew he had the ball. Stop him. Can you do it? No? Okay. Come on out. Drew Aller, go back on in. But he also had an arm. And I think that we saw that at times in the Wisconsin game. We saw that against Northwestern last year. So The thing that you worry about with the Perbula is he a flash in the pan or is he a legit prospect? Like, I could see, and it's not to be disrespectful, so please again, Mizzou fans, don't hate me. I could see like Kenny Trill, like trending 2.0. Like, you have the 5 touchdown game against Kansas, and he looks awesome, and everyone is hyping him up to be this next dude because we only got to see a sample size of Kenny Hill before that South Carolina game in 2014. He was backing up Johnny Manziel, and then it's like, okay, now we're getting to face off against Alabama, and it's like a 36-0 loss, and he has 4 interceptions. Like, that's where I'm at with Bo Perbula. I don't want to think that way, but like, there's just such a small sample size. We don't know what we're getting yet. And it's exciting to know that now going to a place like Missouri, he has an opportunity to actually be the dude, not splitting reps and hoping to become the dude.
I think that's going to be something. The biggest story for heading into the season and probably throughout the season will be that quarterback battle as well. Another big story of this offseason, obviously, Mizzou extended Eli Drinkwitz. They also extended Corey Batoon and their defensive coordinator. They got a different looking defense here, as they do have some guys get drafted on the defensive side of the ball too. They do bring in some transfers there. I want to talk some defense before we let you go. What are your thoughts kind of on the outlook of this defense? I think it's one of those things where it doesn't seem like there's a lot of expectations. There's more excitement for the offensive side of the ball, obviously, than there is for the defensive side of the ball heading into this year.
So I was having a conversation with somebody in Atlanta about Eli Drinkwitz because of there had been rumors last season. There's rumors going into this year that if Florida were to fire Billy Napier, an underlying name would have been Drink to go get the job.
Yeah.
That contract extension that he didn't get paid any extra money, but what he did was he reinvented his staff, I think was the sign of Mizzou is invested on this being our guy, and whatever he wants, we're going to make sure that he gets. I think that was to make sure that Corey Batoon was not going to turn into a Blake Baker 2.0 and then go to a bigger job next offseason. Because that was the most under the radar, smartest hire that we have probably seen in the SEC in the last several years. Because you're replacing Blake Baker, who was phenomenal as a play caller and got multiple players to the NFL and was really, I think, needed that opportunity to kind of get back to where he wanted. And you kind of knew he was going to go to LSU because of initially he was thought about being the defensive coordinator. They let him go. Brian Kelly immediately said, no, that was a mistake. So I'm going to pay you a lot of money to bring you back. But like, Corey Batoon didn't call plays when he was underneath Kane Womack. Womack still was the play caller at South Alabama. And so a lot of people were like, oh, well, this guy's going to come on in and probably have the elements a little bit too big for him. No, they were top 20 in almost every single category. They had a great pass rush. They were exceptional in the run defense. The linebacker play with a bunch of newcomers like Corey Flagg was awesome. Their secondary, whether it was Toriano Pride, who got benched but still ended up coming back and making a big time play, like they stepped on up. And so I think that making sure that you paid Corey Batoon whatever he wanted, that way he was locked in as the long-term option for you as your defense coordinator, was massive. And for me, the defense, I would say, and I've had this conversation about USC before, like USC with their offense, if they were to say go from being a top 25 offense to a top 50 offense, but that 120th ranked defense turned into a top 60 defense, and you kind of took some of the things that the offense maybe is going to be missing to give to that defensive side, they're going to be a playoff team, or at least 9-3, and they're going to be competitive going into the month of November. That's kind of how I feel about Mizzou right now. If you were to have, instead of a top 20 defense and like the 75th ranked offense, you become a top 40 defense and a top 60 offense, or even a top 50 offense, I think that's a very balanced approach. And yes, you are losing talent, but there's some really good names. I think that is a solid foundation. Jalen Catalon's like getting his MD in college football. He's been around. He's literally played everywhere at this point.
Yeah, on his fourth team, right?
Played for Barry Odom a second time. Played for Texas at one point, which was like his dream school. Now he's getting, one last shot to play at Mizzou. You brought in Stephen Hall this offseason. You still have Toriano Pride on the roster. You have Tristan Newsome as your outside linebacker. Dre Norwood's back for another year, which I think is a really big blessing. And then you have like some other guys that are some depth pieces, like Nate Johnson coming on in, and Braylon Henderson coming on in, and Mose Phillips coming on in. So I think that you're still going to be a really solid unit. I don't know if top 20 is what we should expect, but if it ends up being where you're giving up a touchdown to have more consistency in the passing attack through the year, you make that trade. I think that a lot of people would say you make that trade. So I'm looking at Damon Wilson. I'm looking at Josiah Trotter. I'm looking at Dre Norwood. And I think that if those three guys at each position have that continuity, and then you throw in like a Zion Young, you throw in like a McClellan, and then you can throw in like a Sterling Webb if you want to. But if those three guys can be X factors at their spot, where they're top 10 in pressure rate if you're Damon Wilson, they're top 15 in tackles if you're Josiah Trotter, they're top 15 in pass breakups and interceptions if you're Dre Norwood. I still think it's going to be a top 40 unit. I think it's going to be very challenging for quarterbacks to play against that aren't mobile. Taking away the mobility is going to be, I think, one of the big things that I'm not sold on right now at Mizzou. Like, Lenore Sellers coming to your backyard. How do you slow him down? How do you slow down Diego Pavia? How do you make sure that Jalen Daniels stays in the pocket? That's another thing that you're going to have to worry about week 2. And I think that's a good litmus test for other guys that you're facing off against later on in the year. But I still think it's a good unit. I don't think it will be a great unit this year, but like B's get degrees. B's get you to 9 and 3, 10 and 2. Like, I mean, if you have a B offense and a B defense, it's not a death sentence. Like, that still is going to be a top 25 team at the end of the year.
I think one of the things we'll just really have to watch for is that defensive line, which I am excited about. You mentioned some of those people with Chris McClellan, and you're getting Darius Smith back, and you brought in or you have Zion Young too, and all of these guys who were originally transfers to Mizzou. So just another, feather in the hat or whatever you want to say for Drinkwitz. But what I really like is you mentioned Jalen Catalon. I think one of our biggest issues last year was that secondary position and giving up those big plays. We gave up so many big plays against Boston College, which kept them in that game. Yeah. Gave up so many plays against Vanderbilt. And, you had a little bit of a liability, maybe with Marvin Burks Jr., but I feel like he's coming back. He's a little bit older. He's a little bit better. But adding Jalen Catalon to Dalen Carnell, who has so much experience playing in the SEC and who has had a very good career playing in the SEC, been with Mizzou his whole career. I'm really excited about what pressure the defensive line can put on the quarterback so that maybe the secondary doesn't have to be as amazing, but I like those pieces that they added. I'm still a little bit nervous about cornerback, but
my only fear with Catalan is it's going to be week 3 and he separates his shoulder and he's out for the season, like he did at Arkansas, like he did at Texas, like he did at every other place. Like, that's kind of the, like sometimes you look at those 7-year seniors and you're like, holy crap, how'd they get that eligibility waiver? Because they had the COVID year and they had 2 season-ending injuries that allowed him to redshirt. So am I getting that version of him, or am I getting a dude that is playing a little bit more, I would say, balanced? And what was really interesting is that if you talk to him early on in his career, he said that part of the reason he was getting injured so often, he played reckless. Like, it was all about being that heat-seeking missile and not really caring about his body. He wanted to make the highlight hit. So are we getting a more refined version? Are we getting the person that is more so understanding of it's a 12-game season and every single Saturday matters? Because if that's the case, then yeah, I agree with you. That veteranship on the back end, he can play down low. He's been a good run defender. He's made some plays in coverage at times. He's a good matchup for tight ends. He can go ahead and cover the running back out of the backfield. A lot to like about him, but there's always the what if he gets injured? What's your secondary plan? And that, to me, I just got to see it first, because he was in the SEC for multiple years. He gets hurt. He goes to the Mountain West. He plays for Barry Odom. He plays for a Mountain West Conference Championship, all Mountain West player. Okay, when I get back in the SEC, buddy, what's it going to be? Like, what are we seeing this year?
What I've noticed, a little project that I do is I'll take the roster, the projected depth chart on our lads, and I'll also combine it with some eligibility, and I'll color code it as well. As I mentioned earlier, my brain only works in colors, apparently. And when I look at it,
same way, dude.
Yeah, when I look at this defense, this projected defense, there's a whole lot of red, as in they only got 1 year of eligibility left. So this is a big year of just like on the defense, and what it seems to me, it's like, all right, these guys got 1 year left. We're gonna do as much as we can to get as much as we can out of these guys for the 1 year, and that could be an issue in the previous years. But this isn't a podcast talking about what's next. What's
2027 look like? We're not sure. All right.
And maybe they'll go out and add 21 more transfers next offseason, because that's just how the way the college football is. But they've got a lot of guys on their final year of eligibility. Not sure how that'll translate into the season, but I think it's an interesting note.
It's interesting because there's a lot of guys that are unproven with the experience reps, but they're a veteran team. And so that's where you're kind of sitting and wondering, Are we going to see them be able to translate the mental reps and the IQ and the film study onto actual play? And we've seen that before with some teams where they had a couple of guys that were, they had a lot of great recruiting classes and good depth that stuck around the program and they never missed a beat. But we've also seen guys that, they took a step back because of they weren't getting those reps. And now because of they're going into their fourth year, it's all mental for them. That sometimes you're overworking your brain and you're overstimulating everything and you're trying not to make that mistake because of you don't want the freshman behind you to see reps. And then unfortunately you're overcorrecting, which leads to big time explosive plays. And they have to put in the freshman because of their clean slate. So that's going to be the really interesting part. It's a veteran, inexperienced team, but it doesn't mean it's a bad team. Like, again, I will take a dude that's been in practice, understands what the assignments are, understands what the mentality is, what the culture is every day over a 5-star freshman, just because of I know that I can trust them to go on out and execute properly.
And I feel like that's kind of like a good segue a little bit into the returning players aspect because yeah, we do have a lot of new people, but there are some exciting people that have chosen to return. I'd say a couple of my favorites. Everybody knows I love Marquise Johnson. I think he's a very talented, very fast wide receiver. I actually really like our wide receiver room. I know a lot of people were like, oh, well, Theo Weiss left and Luther Burden left. We've got a lot of talent, obviously with Kevin Coleman coming in, but you still have Marquise Johnson. You have Joshua Manning from Kansas City. We have a lot of really good pieces in that wide receiver room. Also very excited about Connor Tollison coming back. And I've been a kind of a Connor Tollison hater in this, mainly based on a couple of things that happened.
Why you hate on him, Maggie? He's a
it was just my 2023, just frustrations being taken out on a couple of bad plays. And that's not really fair of me, but to bring him back after he got injured against Oklahoma, I think it's great to have a veteran center. I mean, it's kind of, it's the pulse. They kind of control the pace of the game a little bit. Yeah. So love having him back. And like I already said, Dalen Carnell at safety, just the experience and everything, but just kind of wanted to get your opinion on maybe some players that you like at Mizzou that are returning.
Manning and Johnson are probably the two big ones because you saw the highlights last year. Now you just got to see it be a 4-quarter action. Like, what was it? Was it the first game? Who was the first game? Was it not McNeese? Murray State, right? Murray, the first game here last year. How many times did we watch as you saw Marquise Johnson fly down the field and it just was, oh, here's Brady Cook overshooting him. Like, it's like, they never were on the same page, but that's speed you can't teach. And that's coming back this year. And maybe you have a quarterback that isn't trying to go for the home run ball with velocity. He's rather going to have a bit more touch on it. So you see him involved. Joshua Manning, I thought he was going to be a breakout player last year. Like, I truly was buying a lot of stock in him having a superstar, kind of like Luther Burden when he first touched down on campus season. He didn't. So I think that's really big. Brett Norfley coming back is just a mismatch nightmare. I mean, seriously, he's
huge. He's
6'8", like 260 pounds. He can play a traditional wide tight end spot. You can flank him outside to go up against defensive backs. Like, he is going to be just a challenge, I think, for anybody in the conference to guard because of that size. Like, who do you put on him? A joker that's 6'4", but it's slow as crap? Or do you put a fast guy on him that's 5'10" and literally has to go King Kong Empire State to go make a pass breakup? That's going to be a pass interference call. So it's like, that's, I think, really a good thing. Caden Green back for another year, came on really, really strong last season at the end of the year. Just veteranship on the offensive line. Tolleson, having a veteran center to me is probably the biggest anchor you can ask for a young quarterback or for any newcomer on the offensive line, because of they're, for my opinion, the most underappreciated position in football, because they see everything setting up the play. They're relaying the message back to the quarterback. They're calling adjustments. They're setting audibles on the fly. They're going up and sometimes double teams or single teams. They have to make sure that the snap is good before they get blown back and they already are a step behind the line. So Tolleson coming on back is really big. I think Toriano Pride defensively is a good depth piece, even though you don't want him to start maybe full time. You already mentioned guys like Zion Young and Chris McClellan coming on back. I think that's a big deal. The guy I'm most excited for, though, is not a senior. He's a newcomer, and I'm gonna butcher his name, so please help me when I say this.
It's a wide receiver, isn't it?
It's Donovan.
Oh, I think it's Ogobulde.
Adubale.
No, I'm going
Adubale.
You know, it was like when you had Albert there, and it was just Alberto.
Yeah.
It's not it's the highlight that I posted on Twitter. That I know that you reshared. just him with a one-handed catch. And he was wanted by Texas A&M, Georgia, Alabama. Like, this was a kid that was maybe not the frontline guy on their radar, but still a really big-time name. You get him going off to the races early on. It takes a lot of pressure off of Kevin Coleman. It takes a lot of pressure off of Marquise Johnson at the limit to hype, Joshua Manning, even some other guys that you brought on in, like an Xavier Lord or a James Madison, Daniel Blood back for another year. He's really fun. Like, and if you watch his high school tape, it's really fun. Like, good route runner, wins a lot of his one-on-one battles, doesn't drop many balls. Like, that's a dude that I feel like at the end of the year, I don't know if we'll talk about him the same way we did Ryan Williams, but like I have been saying all offseason that Dallas Wilson at Florida is going to be this year's breakout wide receiver. Just because of when you're 6'3", 220 pounds, and you move like him with that spring game, it's very hard for me not to buy stock in you. But like Cam Coleman had a good season opposite of Ryan Williams last year. That's going to be Donovan out. Like, we're not going to mention him because of maybe Missouri is not in the hunt for the college football playoff, or maybe it's because of, again, it's Mizzou. We don't ever think about Mizzou unless you're in Mizzou. But at the season's end, knowing that Perbula is probably coming back for another year and you got him now taking over as wide receiver 1, it's going to have that same feel of, yeah, there's another dude in the SEC you got to worry about, and it's not Luther Burden, but basically he said, I'm leaving your team now. Come on in. Let's have a good time.
It's exciting. That class of wide receivers that they brought in is a pretty sneaky good class, I do think. But
running backs too, because Marquise
yes.
Marquise Davis, right? That's Davis's last name, right?
Yeah.
He's a beast.
There's rumors that like he might get legit playing time as a true freshman this year with that running back room that they already have. Yeah,
dude, why not? Like, honestly, if you're good enough to not be on the bench, play him. Like,
right,
change things up for your offense personnel if you gotta.
I mean, they've got like Brennan Haygood was also another guy that they had in that class, and Haygood was really good, and Haygood was originally like the marquee. I mean, the running back that they got in that class, like, yeah, this is our running back, and then Davis flipped from Kentucky, his commitment from Kentucky to Mizzou, which was a huge flip for Drinkwitz. That class, it's a sneaky good class. I don't think it didn't get like the big buzz that I think other like recruitment classes did in Mizzou history in recent memory, but I think that's going to be one that's going to have a lot of sneaky contributors to it, even in year one.
But you have quantity this year, maybe not as much quality, but you have quantity of guys that can be role players. And honestly, the role players eventually turn into the fixtures of the future. So that's kind of the blessing, is maybe you don't have the Ryan Williams or the Dallas Wilson, but you have the Carnell Tate. Like Carnell Tate took 4 years to really break on out at Ohio State, and then holy crap, look at him now, he's a top 10 wide receiver. Like have that be one of your running backs, but in his version, okay, 200 yards, we rest our starters before we have to face off against Kansas in a week up for the battle line. We'll throw in one of the freshmen and they'll rush for 200 yards against Central Arkansas. We feel good. Like that. Like that's what you got.
Let's talk some schedule before
Hold
we
on.
head out
I
here.
feel like I have to tell you before you get yelled at by Mizzou fans. It's the border war.
Border war. I know. How do this what?
Arkansas, and they'll yell at you because that's not a rivalry. So I just want
no.
Before they yell at you.
It's fine, because if I had to yell at somebody yesterday for calling it the Red River rivalry, and I'm like, it's not the Red River rivalry.
No, it's the shootout.
It's the shootout. And it's nothing else. So
some Storage Mart.
Yeah.
Storage Mart.
Shout out Storage Mart for getting their money in on that.
Yeah, Storage Mart Border Showdown. That's what it's called. And everybody's like, no,
it's not.
It's the border war. It's literally based on Civil War. It's the border war. It'll always be the border war. So
it was funny. Connor Tolleson actually told us at SEC Media Days they had a legit historian come in this offseason and tell them the story of the border war to prepare them for this game. Because of, again, Mizzou's one of these programs that has players from all across the country, whether it be transfers or from Texas or from Oklahoma, that maybe don't understand. There's a reason why Chase Daniels and Mark Mangione hate each other. Like, there's a reason why these two programs at one point were viewed in such a toxic light in the Big 12. Like, there's prominence behind it. So I apologize to all of my Missourians out there for saying it wrong. My bad. I will take back my honorary badge of being a Mizzou faithful for this one game because I didn't know that one.
That's fine. I think it all works, but that's a good
end, but still
a good segue into the schedule, as we talked about. I mean, they're in Columbia for the first 6 weeks of the season as I pull the schedule up here.
Till like October 17th, I think.
Yeah, October 18th
go
is
to
your first
Auburn.
road game,
Yeah.
and it is at Jordan Hare. Thoughts on how this schedule all shakes out, Cole, and how you think Missouri it will fare in this the slate that they have?
This is where like I don't know. I don't because of okay. And the reason I say I don't know is because of I thought this way about Auburn last season. So Auburn didn't have 6 games at home; they had 5. But it was a bunch of new players being broken on in, a lot of freshmen that Hugh Freeze didn't want to turn to. But I thought, okay, you're breaking in a team with games against Cal and an unknown offensive line with Oklahoma and an Arkansas roster that not a lot of people are buying stock into. You should feel confident, and you lose all 3 of them. Like you lose all 3 of them, and it's terrible execution. So that's my fear with Mizzou. If we're getting the version that I hope, which is you're building the rapport, the chemistry, you win the border war, you pull off an upset against either Alabama or South Carolina, you lose the other one, but it's fine because you know what? Both those teams are playing for the college football playoff, and you're 5-1. How you look in that stretch will mentally and physically prepare you for what is going to be a test in Auburn, what is going to be a test in Fayetteville, what's going to be a test in Norman and Nashville. But if you have your struggles along the way and you're never able to get that constant identity, it may end up being a trap, like to where you're sitting with 2 losses already to Alabama and South Carolina, and maybe you're going down to the wire against a Kansas squad to where it is now you're feeling this is a year of probable rebuild, and then it just doesn't execute when you play on the road. Like, that's where I'm at when it comes to this overall identity. If they can have a balanced approach and feel like that this is a team that knows what its strengths and weaknesses are before they leave the state, I think they will beat at least 2 of the 4 teams on the road. They'll beat either Auburn and Oklahoma, or they'll beat Vanderbilt and Arkansas, and maybe they'll win 3 or 4. Like they very well could. But if there are those mishaps, it's going to be one where you got to wonder what's going to be the element that gets you back on the right track, or what is the overall problem with the other teams. Because that's another thing that you can factor in is, hey, is Auburn not actually living up to expectations once again? Are they struggling? So we're struggling, they're struggling. Maybe we can catch them slipping in their home game, and this is where Hugh Freeze gets fired. The hype around Diego Pavio was a one-hit wonder, and now it's back to Vanderbilt being Vanderbilt. We can go ahead and march on into US First Bank Stadium and kick their teeth in. Look, they already fired Brent Venables in Norman. John Mateer was an overrated quarterback, and he sucked because he played against G5 competition. We got this one in the bag. Like, those are things that you can also factor in. I think the floor for Missouri this year is 7-5. I do, just because of how much new there is. I think the ceiling is 9-3. I think that it's really hard for me to bank on Alabama coming on in and you guaranteeing a win there. Texas A&M, I think, is going to be one of the games that will define Missouri's season because of last season. And Drink even said last season, this was a Missouri team that wasn't prepared. They didn't mentally get themselves in the right mindset to go down to College Station being a top 10 team. And it was evident by the time you got to the end of the second quarter. Like halftime, you needed that opening drive to end in a touchdown for you to even have a little bit of a shot. And it was a 3-and-out. So they already knew you were waving the white flag. That's going to be, I think, a big time game. I think that you also are going to talk about several other matchups. The Auburn game, what are they going to look like? Mississippi State, I'm not saying that Mississippi State's going to win an SEC game this year, but I do think having Blake Shapen back is going to really help out with Jeff Lebby's offense, because there were times last year that it looked like it was trending upward going into that Florida game, and then they got hurt. So I think that I think overall Mizzou is going to be 8-4 this year. If I were to say today where those losses come, it's South Carolina, it's Alabama, it's at Auburn. I just don't think Auburn is going to let you get past that one, because there was such that moment last year where they were in control, and then Brady Cook for homecoming comes on out, drugged out of his mind, coming to be the hero of the Show Me State, and they got lucky and they survived that win. And then I think Oklahoma's legit. Like I really do believe in John Mateer. I really do believe in Jaden Ott. I do believe in Ben Arbuckle. So I think 8-4 is what Mizzou is going to be, but you still beat Vanderbilt. You get an upset win over Texas A&M, which I think could be really beneficial for you guys. Arkansas, you still kick their teeth in. You win the border war. You show growth and a lot of optimistic feel going into next season. but it's not a year to where we're saying it's going to be 10-3 with the bowl victory. That's just where my brain is right now. But I've been proven wrong multiple times before. I can't wait to be proven wrong again.
Well, that was kind of going to be my question for you was, like, where do they end the season? And if somebody were to upset them or they were to upset somebody, who would it be? Obviously, your upset answer is Texas A&M, but who do you, I don't know if I think that Auburn will be an upset. I think that they'll be favored to win at home. I think it's still pretty early in the season, and it's going to be coming off of an Alabama game, which is, if I'm not picking Mizzou to beat Alabama until Mizzou proves to me that they can beat Alabama. I've done that for a couple of years. I just don't pick that. But I feel like Mizzou could lose that game, and then everybody's like, oh, no way that they're beating Auburn. So I don't think that they'll be favored, that Mizzou will be favored in that game. But I don't know where maybe the surprise upset might come from.
I would say Arkansas. And here's the reason I say Arkansas. And I've compared him to this multiple times. At this point, it's a running joke, and I don't care. Taylor Green is 2 a.m. Taco Bell. Are you drunk or sober? Are you drunk or are you sober? Because when you're drunk, 2 a.m. Taco Bell hits different.
It hits.
The cheesy gordita crunch, the quesadilla, the who knows what processed taco meat with the disgusting lettuce. 2 a.m. Taylor Green is awesome. And I can tell you, if you just know anything about Bobby Petrino, year 1 to year 2 transitions for quarterbacks, scary. Like, it is very scary on what he can do. But then there's also sober 2 a.m. Taco Bell, or just Taco Bell whenever you're sober. It doesn't hit as well. You're probably going to have some regrets at 7 a.m. You probably are looking at other things that could be open. Waffle House is about 6 miles down the road. We got a Buc-ee's that always has the chopped brisket sandwiches. Like, maybe I want that instead of Taco Bell.
Stop bragging about it. We don't have those here.
And it's because of, I can trust that it's going to get the job done, where I don't know what Taco Bell is going to be at 2 a.m. And that's Taylor Green throwing in double coverage. That's him running out of bounds on a 3rd down and 16 that forces you to punt. That's him maybe not understanding where the pressure is, and he takes a sack when it's ill-advised. That's Taylor Green. Like, it is 2 a.m. Taco Bell, drunk or sober, whichever one you get is really going to define the outcome of the game. And so if you get good Taylor Green, this could be a 4-quarter battle. Like, he has the skill. There's a reason why you hear people like SEC Mike and me and even Pate, a few others, like, mention, I don't know what to make of Arkansas, but if you put that quarterback on a different roster, we may be talking about a college football playoff team. Like, that's how talented of a player he is. And so he alone, knowing it would be his last college game potentially with this current coaching staff, nothing really to lose. Mizzou's not playing for a college football playoff bid at this point. Maybe they kind of take their foot off the gas and he goes rampant and goes sicko mode. Like, that to me is where I would look at the upset, just because of its Taylor Green at quarterback.
Interesting. Maggie, anything else before we dip on out of here?
No, I think you hit it. I'm hoping, though, that Mizzou is ranked in your top 25 by the end of the season.
They will be ranked as soon as they beat Kansas. So we come back in week 3 going into that matchup. They will be ranked. And to be fair, Tennessee and Mizzou were the first 2 off the list. So it's not like they were way down the pecking order looking back. Probably gave a little bit too much love to TCU and their furry quarterback. I probably gave a little bit too much love to Utah. I love Kyle Whittingham. Yeah. Michigan, I probably gave a little bit too much love to. If I could have, I wouldn't put Mizzou in my top 20, but they probably do belong somewhere in that top 25. Same with Tennessee.
Heard it here first. It doesn't matter where you start the preseason poll. It's where you finish the postseason poll. And the Big 12 is like, no, we're not even going to do preseason.
No, exactly. The Big 12 is going to cannibalize itself this year to where I'm going to look stupid with all of those teams in there.
It's okay. Everybody always puts K-State somewhere in that like 20 to 25 range. And sometimes I just feel like they need to. I don't know why K-State is kind of,
because they're the Texas 8-4 of the Big 12. Yeah. Chris Klieman, you can guarantee, is going to have a solid defense and 4 losses on the schedule almost every year. They're a safe bet. I don't have Iowa State in there, and you thought I would have shot a puppy like with Big 12 fans. How dare you not give respect to Matt Campbell and Rocco Beck? I'm like, he lost his 2 NFL wide receivers. Right. Like, Chris Klieman has shitty rosters all the time, and he makes them 8-4. He's the most underrated coach in college football, for my opinion. Like,
very good.
That's why I have them as always like 23 at the bare minimum.
I think it makes sense. It makes sense. But appreciate you coming on, defending your honor too, for your top 25, Cole. That's going to do it for this season opening edition of Mizzou That's Who. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thank you to everyone who tweeted, who texted, who DM'd asking about the episode. It's here. We're back for the season, and we'll be taking you all the way through Missouri's football season. So for Maggie Johnson, I'm Tucker Franklin. We will talk to you guys next week.